welcome, a warm welcome to everyone who we have that we can see in our webinar session. We have faculty, students joining us for the session today. So I'll invite everyone who's here and can to turn on their cameras. We thought it would be nice to just actually see a few faces today. So thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to say again, a warm welcome to our event launching the book Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet. It is an actual book. Before I tell you more, it actually exists. So you can actually hold it and buy it if you wish, but we'll talk more about that later. So what I want to do just before we dive in and get started is I'm going to give us a little orientation to the session today. And our guest speakers were just messaging me to say their internet was having a little hiccup. So we can see they're frozen in this moment and hopefully will be rejoining us in a moment. And so just a question coming in. So we are in a webinar session. So we'll only be able to see videos for those of us who are inside of the webinar. We have 260 participants right now, I think from all over the world. We can't see all of you, but we're so glad to know that you are here with us. And we seem to be unfrozen in Plum Village again. So welcome back. All right. So before we continue on, I just want to take a moment to share the University of Toronto's land acknowledgement. And for me, this is just an opportunity to pause in my day and to give some recognition to the place that I'm in, to consider my relationship to it. For myself, I don't know about those of you joining us today, I've spent a lot of time in my projects and emails in the future and the past this morning. And so for me, this is really an invitation to come home to myself, come home to the land that I'm on. And this land acknowledgement is not fully comprehensive, but I offer it as an invitation for each of us to take a look at the place that we are in. And so the land acknowledgement from the University of Toronto: we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. And we'd also like to invite those of you joining us. The chat is open, and if you'd like to drop into the chat, just an invitation perhaps to acknowledge the land that you're on, perhaps also the ancestors, what you know about the history of that land and place, your ancestors. These could be your land ancestors, also your genetic ancestors, your spiritual ancestors, maybe recognizing some of the human family that has supported you in this space, but also our non-human family, the animals, plants, and minerals that are part of the spaces we're in. So for all of you here, we have the chat open, and we just like to take a moment to invite people to type in any acknowledgements of the space, place, and history that you are joining us from today. So let's take a moment to do that. Please feel free to drop into the chat. So wonderful to hear the different places and acknowledgements that are coming in. We can see those streaming through. And so just a note, I'll read some of these out if they're coming through to the hosts and panelists and not out to everyone. But we're just seeing people coming in from many places, and I'll read some of them out to share them with you. So I see coming in from Vermont, land of the Abenaki. Hello, Hassan from Pakistan, Brazil, Oakville on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Czech Republic, Columba, Bogota, Universidad. So many are coming through that I almost can't keep up with them, but we're hearing from folks from all over the world. So thank you so much for sharing the different spaces that you are calling in from. And so I'll allow these to kind of keep streaming through. And as they do, I'm going to continue with just a little bit of an orientation to our session today. So we're going to begin in a moment by hearing a talk from Brother Phap Huu and Sister True Dedication, who I will introduce a little more fulsomely then. I just wanted to give you an idea of our agenda. So we'll have a talk, and that will be followed by a Q&A, and we're looking forward to having a bit of a dialogue all together. We've gotten a lot of requests also from folks who are wondering if the session is being recorded. So just to share again, we will be recording the session, and we will make the link available. If you'd like to be emailed a copy of the link, I'm going to drop into the chat the mailing list for our program at the University of Toronto, which is the Buddhism, Psychology, and Mental Health program. So if you'd like, we'll email it directly through there. We'll also be sharing it with Plum Village, and we'll make sure to disseminate the link through the Plum Village channels as well. So if you want to take a look at it afterwards or share with friends, that will be a great way to access it. Also a reminder that in the bottom of your screen, we have translation and interpretation for Italian with us today. So if you would like that option, you can click on it there. You also in the top right of your screen have different view options. So if you want to be just looking at those who are speaking, you can orient that way. Or if you want to look at the collection of us, you can orient to gallery. So choose your view options to see what best supports you to enjoy this session. I also just briefly wanted to say that we will have a guided practice as part of the talk, and just a warm invitation for everyone to have this opportunity to experience the practice. And also, if you've arrived at the session and that doesn't feel comfortable for you today, also an orientation just to know it's an invitation and to engage with it in whatever way feels comfortable for you. Sometimes when I lead practices, when I'm on Zoom, I like to sometimes think of it like I'm leading a group exercise class. And so I invite everyone in the exercise class to kind of monitor and modify what's right for your mind and body today. So if those leading the exercise are squatting deeper than it works for you, you can choose how deeply to do your own squat. So I invite all of you to play with that when the practice is offered. I also wanted to briefly introduce myself. Who am I? Why am I orienting you today? So my name is Ellie Weisbaum, and I wear a few hats at the University of Toronto. One of them, my primary affiliation, is I'm an assistant professor in the teaching stream in the Buddhism, Psychology, and Mental Health program here. And I'm also a recent alumni of the Institute of Medical Science and the Faculty of Medicine, where I conducted research looking into the impacts of mindfulness, specifically Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings on the well-being of physicians, and just completed my PhD through that program. I'm also, in relation to the Plum Village community, went to my first retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh when I was 10 years old. I'm a member of the Order of Interbeing and also an active member of the Wake Up International community. So it is a delight to be bringing together these different knowledge streams today, both my work and engagement at the University of Toronto and with Plum Village, and to be here with all of you to explore how these things can intersect, inform, and create dialogue with one another around this topic, Zen and the art of saving the planet. So without further ado, I want to introduce our wonderful speakers who are zooming in from Plum Village, France. We have Brother Phap Huu and Sister Dedication joining us today. A brief introduction. Brother Phap Huu is the abbot of the monks community of Plum Village in France and a long-term attendant for over 15 years of Zen Master, scholar, and peace activist Thich Nhat Hanh. Sister True Dedication is editor and commentator of Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet, and one of the founders of the Wake Up movement that brings this practice to young people. On a personal note, I have spent many years practicing, playing, and working with both these individuals. I won't go into all the stories, but seeing them reminds me of doing flash mob meditations in the middle of New York City, sitting on mountains drinking tea, enjoying bonfires, laughing together over vegan ice cream and pizza, and many more wonderful adventures. But we won't go into that. What I want to do now is pass it off to the two of them to offer us some insights and ideas around this book before we have a chance to ask them some questions. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and thank you everyone for being here. It's a real honor for us to have this time together. And especially this season, this autumn, with the COP26 and so much new research around our planet, so much activity, so much engagement from so many of us towards engaged action to try and help our beloved planet. It's truly wonderful that we were able to release this beautiful, beautiful book of our teachers' deep insights and also guidance, especially for the young generation. And one thing we've really felt and seen in the last few months very keenly is that this crisis calls for intergenerational wisdom. And we know that there's so much research that for so many of us, we are feeling such keen anxiety, maybe even we could say some fear and despair, what all the science, all the information is telling us about our actual situation. And for many of us, that becomes a kind of existential crisis. And I think this kind of time, of all kind of times, and in this kind of situation, it's important to turn to our wisdom traditions of all kinds. You know, it's a time for humanity to dig deep and to really see what different traditions can offer. And I think for our community, we can really say that this book is the distillation of our teachers' wisdom over many decades, capturing thousands of years of Buddhist wisdom, 2,500 years since the Buddha himself was teaching. And I would hope that every spiritual tradition can also offer their deepest insights and contribution towards how we can find a way through this. And our community has been participating at the COP, the recent climate conference that took place in Scotland. And many people there welcomed us into that zone of action. And they said, we really need the spiritual traditions. This isn't just a question for people with suits behind desks. This really is something that calls for a collective awakening, for deep wisdom, different ways of communicating and looking deeply, and to really mobilize the best of humanity. And we may think, what has Zen got to do with the planet? And I think for our teacher, for our community, Zen offers a kind of clarity, a kind of authenticity, and a deep insight and wisdom to really see the situation clearly. And even in the last couple of weeks since the climate conference in Scotland came to a close, I think many people may have been feeling this deep sense of disappointment or even panic. And we may really realize that actually what we need is to be our human best in order to really look deeply into what got us here. Why is it that we are living beyond the limits of our beauty? Always want more, take more. What are the real roots of how we got here? And the kind of insight, deep looking, and concentrations of meditation can help us see some layers to reality that we might not always see. And they can also point a way to how we can have the kind of strength and courage to live differently, to live on this planet differently, and to live with each other differently. We sometimes say that we need to change our way of seeing and change our way of being. You know, it's our way of being that got us here, so we will need to have a different way through it. The path out of our current crises, which are, it's to do with the destabilization of our climate, the destruction of nature, but also the inequity, the discrimination, and the racial injustice that is permeating our world. If we want to find a way through this, it's going to look different. So we need to be able to change our way of living. And in the Buddhist tradition, and in particular in Zen, peace, stillness, and presence in each moment is the foundation of where we begin to arrive in order to look deeply, to really answer the question, why are we here and what is the way out? So we would actually like to begin our session with you all today with a meditation that invites us to really sink deeply into this present moment together, to come into our body, to really come in touch with life. In Zen and in Buddhism, we say that awakening isn't something that happens from the intellect. It's not something that happens only with information and facts. We need to engage our whole being and our body with a real quality of presence in this moment. So I'd like to invite my dear brother Papu to guide us in a meditation so we can all have a taste of this sense of presence that can already in just a few minutes give us a kind of solidity, clarity that we can need going forward.
Thank you, sisters. Hello, friends. There's many of us online. As our sister was speaking about collective awakening, this is a collective moment that we are all sharing this present moment together. So I would like to guide us in a meditation. So let us become aware of our body, how we are being, how our posture is right now. If we can allow ourselves to be a little bit upright, if there's any tensions on our shoulders, there's any tensions in our fingers, in our hands, let us just relax. Allow ourselves to ground ourselves into the present moment. And you may like to close your eyes, or you may like to just look, but not wander into different screens or different sites, and just allow ourselves to become aware of our breath. Mindfulness of the breath. As I breathe in, I'm in touch with my in-breath. As I breathe out, I am aware this is my out-breath. Recognizing in-breath as I breathe in, recognizing out-breath as I breathe out. Give yourself a few moments to just be aware of your in-breath and out-breath. If our breath is long, enjoy the long in-breath. Enjoy the slow out-breath. If our in-breath and out-breath is short, allow it to be short. We don't need to force the breath. The breath is just happening. Let us just be present, in touch with in-breath and out-breath. As I breathe in, I follow my in-breath from the beginning to the end. As I breathe out, I take refuge in my out-breath from the beginning to the end. One with in-breath, one with out-breath. And as I breathe in, I allow myself to be aware of my body. If there's any tension on my face, on my shoulders, on my arms, my chest, my whole upper body, my whole lower body. And with my out breath, breathing in, I'm in touch with my body. Breathing out, I relax my body. Aware of body, relaxing my body. As I breathe in touch with body, I have this time, this space to be aware and to care for my body. Breathing out, I offer love, tenderness to my body. Breathing in, I'm in touch with life in me and all around me. Breathing out, I am one with life in me and all around me. There are elements of freshness inside of us, vitality, strength. I allow myself to recognize these qualities that are present. Breathing in, I nourish my freshness, my strength. Breathing out, I am one with my freshness, one with the strength of the environment, the wonderful sunshine, the wonderful trees, nature that is offering in every minute in life. Breathing in, I allow myself to be in the present moment. Breathing out, I enjoy this present moment. Being in touch with the present moment, I am free from the past and not running after the future. I allow myself to be grounded. This is the element of stability, allowing myself to not wander to the past and to not be carried away into the future. In touch with the mountain inside of me, stability. Breathing in, I am present, I am solid. Breathing out, I am here in the very here and now. As I breathe, I may recognize that my breath has become slower and calmer. I enjoy the stillness that has manifested in me and globally around all the friends breathing mindfully with me. Still water, calm, peace is present in the here and now. With stillness, I can reflect everything as it is. Breathing in, I am in touch with stillness. Breathing out, I enjoy the stillness. Peace is here. Out, I am a manifestation of stillness and peace. As I breathe in, I am in touch with the element of openness, space. Thanks to openness, I am able to continue to learn, continue to evolve. And with openness, possibilities are possible. Connection, love, and a deeper understanding. I recognize the space that is present in me, and I nourish that element of space inside of me and all around me. In, space, out, freedom, not caught in the past or in the future. Breathing in, I smile to life in this very moment. How wonderful it is to be alive. Breathing out, I feel at ease in this very moment, connected to so many friends around, breathing mindfully together in this moment. I listen. This wonderful sound of the bell brings me home to the present moment. I listen. This wonderful sound of the bell guides me home to the present moment. Thank you, friends, for practicing, for breathing mindfully. I will now hand over to Sister True Dedication to continue with the sharing.
Thank you, brother. And I hope many of us can feel a little more settled, a little more arrived in our body. And in our tradition, this is what we call the energy of mindfulness. For us, mindfulness isn't a tool, but it's really an energy that sort of activates all our senses of awareness and presence in our whole body and helps us really be right where we are. And as we were passing through those different images of freshness, solidity, stillness, and space, we may also have had a chance to really get in touch with the natural world around us. Perhaps a favorite tree on our path that we walk past every day, or perhaps a beautiful sunset that we've seen recently, or even the moon. Last night was the full moon, and I think for some of us we may have been able even to see the eclipse. So it's a very auspicious time. And for me, often when I think of that quality of space, I'm inspired by the image of the moon. For us, mindfulness is something that we can cultivate throughout the day. For us, it's not something that we only do in the sitting position on a cushion. For many of us, it may be something we do with an app, perhaps, and we might measure the minutes that we might be mindful in the day. In our tradition, we want to integrate this quality of presence, whatever we're doing, whether we are maybe drinking a glass of water, or even brushing our teeth, or even doing the dishes. Even walking, like stepping outside of the house, in the early morning, maybe to go to class or to go to work. For us, perhaps the first few steps outside our home after we step out of our door is a chance to arrive and to be fully present in each step for the start of the day. And this becomes important in Buddhist responses to crisis, because it's exactly this quality of presence that we integrate into our day that allows us to, in a way, be the best part of ourselves, to activate the good seeds in us, to be able to respond to the different challenges we face. And we know that there are those of us who are facing challenges now in an acute personal way. And for some of us, it is more in the anxiety, the strong feelings perhaps of sadness or even despair that come up. And it's this energy of mindfulness that we can generate throughout the day that allows us to find a way to embrace and to be with those feelings. We have so many devices and stimulants that we can turn to cover up how we're feeling. And with the courage of Zen, we want to be able to see clearly what is coming up in our being, in our way of consciousness, after we read a news article, after we scroll through social media. How are we responding to the challenges that humanity is facing right now? How can we respond not with the energy of panic, but really with courage, clarity, and non-fear? How can we really face the truth? And this wonderful book, it begins with a beautiful invitation to listen to the earth, to really take time to be with our beautiful planet, with the trees, the sky, the bird song, to be with the wonders of life, in order to really, first of all, be alive ourselves, to know and feel intimately what is that life that we want to protect. And our teacher even says to dare to fall in love with the earth. So to not intellectually think that the environment is something outside of us that we want to take care of, but really to see that we are part of the earth, that we belong to this beautiful planet. The earth is not something outside of us. The earth is us. We are ourselves the earth. And for some of us, that is to walk in a forest, perhaps, or lie down flat on the ground, or whatever is meaningful to us. If we live near a beach, perhaps to really be in touch with the ocean, and to really take time to feel our interconnection with the planet, to activate this energy of love, which in our teacher's tradition of activism, our activism is motivated by love rather than by fear or panic or even by anger. It's our love and cherishing what is so precious about life. That is a huge source of energy to fuel our engaged action to protect life. Our teacher is known for being a peace activist, and when he was first came over to the West in the 1960s, it was to call for peace during the Vietnam War. And in fact, courage, engagement, and speaking out really defined the early decades of his teaching career. And it was in the process of taking care of social workers and peace activists that he developed many of the mindfulness practices that we all know in the world today, and that were part of the training that he gave to his thousands of students in Vietnam, and then coming over to the West and working with peace activists here. And what our teacher realized is that you can send all the bombs to the moon. He was active during the campaign for nuclear disarmament. You can send all the bombs to the moon. But he said, how can we take the bombs out of the hearts of people? And I found this such an important insight that he had, and he realized that it's not enough just to remove the weapons in order to have peace. We need humans who really know how to be peace. And I believe that insight also translates to this current moment that we're in. It's not enough just to continue our way of living and being with the earth. We really need to get to the root of the problem in our hearts and minds. Why are we living beyond the limits of this biosphere? Why don't we see that we have enough? And actually, when we can be in touch with the natural world, when we can be in touch with the miracle of life, we kind of don't need to consume so much to be happy. We don't need to have an excessive standard of living. We can live very simply and have enough. And in the current discussions in the climate movement and in the climate debate and conferences, we've really noticed that there's perhaps not enough, or there's definitely not enough talk about how we need to change our way of living. Everyone wants to sort of convince us that we can have our cake and eat it, that we can continue to live beyond the limits of our biosphere, and yet will somehow technology will save us. But you can't have your cake and eat it, and you can't have a planet and eat it. We all can live in a way that is deeply fulfilling, deeply nourishing, and it can be very simple, and we can be very happy. We have a chance to live as monastics, so we really have a chance to touch this simple way of living. And we hope that in the coming months and years, this message will also really come into the frame of discussion, to really wake up that a more radical change is needed by all of us. And that is our agency. We can change our own way of living. And Tai explains this beautifully in the book, the simplicity and power of enoughness in the present moment, when we know how to be there enough. And there's another beautiful teaching that is really one of the centerpieces of the book, which comes from an ancient Buddhist sutra called the Diamond Sutra. Sometimes we really have to open our way of looking, our whole paradigm, all our perception much more widely, to really get to the roots of the anxiety we may face, the despair and the fear. And many ancient wisdom traditions, including Buddhism, have very powerful teachings to help us transform at the root these very strong feelings. We would say that the teachings of the Diamond Sutra give us a new way of seeing what really is it to be a human and to be alive. And there are 4 very powerful contemplations that are taught in the first chapters of this book, which really can spark the awakening that Zen can really offer to this situation. And so for us, we offer the deep, the deep insight and the deep looking, but also a way of living that can build a different kind of regenerative future, and where we can cultivate a kind of inner resilience in our daily life, both to nourish our happiness. Mindfulness, we sometimes say, is a source of happiness. When we can cultivate an energy of presence and awareness throughout our day, we can generate more happiness. We can have that balance in order to be able to really take care of the painful feelings and emotions that are coming up for all of us at this time. And in the climate movement, we say we need mitigation. We need to limit the damage we're doing both to the climate, to the natural world, and honestly to other human beings. We also need to adapt our infrastructure. These are 2 elements, the mitigation and the adaptation. And the third part is the human element. Are we resilient enough as humans to be able to face the challenges that we see remotely in the news? Can we keep our spirits clear and courageous? And are we able to face those challenges in our own life as we become more and more affected? So mindfulness is a way to be able to really acknowledge and recognize, look deeply into, and transform, really be with and transform these strong emotions that otherwise can paralyze us. So in a way, there's 2 things that we can offer. This breakthrough, we might call it a Zen breakthrough in terms of the insight and the way of seeing, but also a path, a way of living. And in this wonderful book, there's a very concrete path, a way of living that is offered in the main section of the book, in our way of respecting life, our way of living simply, our way of being in relation with others, our way of communicating, our way of consuming. So I find it a very empowering book, and we are so happy to have brought it into the world. And Brother Papu will continue to share about one of the very powerful teachings in this book, which also comes from our tradition, which is how to cultivate our the different qualities that we need to respond to the situation.
Thank you, Sister. Sister True Dedication gave a very beautiful image, and as well as how to continue to nourish our aspiration. And this is what I want to speak about. We all have aspiration, and we all want to be able to contribute to the life that we're living, which is Mother Earth, our environment, and also our community, the ones that we are around. So one of the things that I was able to grow inside of me, thanks to the practice of mindfulness, is seeing that my well-being is not an individual matter, and someone else's well-being is also not their own individual matter, but we're all interconnected at a very deep space. For example, when my sister suffers, there's no way that I will not feel her suffering. I will not feel her pain. But I can have, with mindfulness, I can be present to hear her, to see what she is going through, and to be a support for her. And so in this practice, I have been able to develop my kindness, my understanding, my compassion, and my presence. Presence is something that is very powerful. In this pandemic, I think we at one stage have also been in touch with loneliness, being not able to connect. And we see the importance of connection. We see the importance of being able to share a space with someone, being able to let them know that I value their presence, I value who they are. And to be loved and to love. I think that is a very essential part of human nature. And it's the same when we bring this meditation to Mother Earth, to the environment, to nature. We live in a very fast-paced society now, and we want everything to happen right away. And so when we don't see something happen as fast as we want, we may lose our own hope, we may lose our own aspiration, and we may even burn out. So mindfulness also gives us the time and space to learn to slow down and to see what is it really that we are running after. Because if we want to adapt, we also have to know how to take care of ourselves to be able to make the adaptation possible. So there is a chapter in Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet that speaks about 3 elements that really resonate in me, and I would like to speak about it. It is these 3 characteristics that each and every one of us, we have inside of us. And the first characteristic is the meditator. The meditator, or like the yogi. And the meditator, it doesn't mean you have to be Buddhist to be a meditator. Our teacher once told all of the friends who come to our retreat, and in our retreat, we have many friends from different religion, friends in different backgrounds. And our teacher tells us that as long as we are breathing, you have an opportunity to practice. And you don't have to be a Buddhist to be mindful of your breath. And this was something that really resonated with me. And that also tells me you don't need to be in a monastery to practice. You don't need to be in a temple or in a hall that we can call spiritual hall, but any moment in life, we have an opportunity to be connected to the practice of mindfulness. What I have guided us in, that is awareness of breath, which leads us to awareness of body, lead us also to the awareness of different elements that are in us. So we have in our retreats, we do retreats for children, and I love seeing children practice because they are the teachers for me, because they know how to be in the moment. When they are happy, they laugh, they dance, they jump. When they are sad, they know how to cry, they know how to express. When they're angry, they can also express that, and we know how to be there for them so that they can take care of their anger. And I think most of us, as we have evolved and continue to grow, I think we put on a lot of masks, and we try to adapt ourselves to be in different situation, but sometimes we also maybe lose ourselves in that moment. We may also lose our true intention, our deepest aspiration. So meditation, it also means to have time for ourselves. And to have time for ourselves is not a selfish thing. It's not, we don't meditate just to care for ourselves. But what I've learned about love is that if I want to love someone, I also have to have the quality of space and presence so that I can offer my true presence for them. So the meditator is being able to recognize, how am I today? On a daily basis, we see each other, we connect, we say, how are you? And we're in autopilot. I'm fine. I'm good. We have an autopilot response. But meditation is really asking us, how am I? How is my heart? How are my feelings? Where is there stress? Where is there tension? Have I been able to give myself space and time to connect to my loved ones? Have I given myself space and time to enjoy being with the food that I have, the conditions that I have, or am I taking it for granted? So the present moment is time that we're living in, but most of the time we forget that we're in the present moment. And we are running after an idea in the future. Even that idea may be saving the planet or helping the planet. But if we don't know how to be present and to truly also take care of ourselves, because our sister have shared that we are also the environment. I also feel because we are not taking care of ourselves, we become numb. Therefore, we continue to destroy what we love. So that concept, that view that Thai offer us, like how can we continue to fall in love again with Mother Earth? It's like when we love someone, we would truly deeply want to know how to care for them. And so mindfulness of body, mindfulness of well-being in oneself also helps us connect to the suffering around us. And mindfulness gives us a chance to see the suffering as it is, so that we don't continue to add on different layers to that suffering, because our mind can create many stories of that suffering. And so sometimes we just have to have a space to really look at the suffering and to see its roots of the suffering. And then we see the root of the suffering, we have an opportunity to heal and to transform. To meditate, there are a few practical things that I would like to share that we can put into our daily life. Mindful breathing is a core practice of Plum Village. You don't have to sit for 30 minutes and be still. Every day you wake up, you have 24 brand new hours before you. How do we live that 24 brand new hours is up to us. I invite you to give yourself 10 mindful in-breath and out-breath each morning as you begin your day. Instead of waking up and trying to think what I need to do, how life is always going to continue. And a lot of the times we fall into a space of just being caught in our own mind. So give yourself that 10 breath of just being present with the breath. And if we want to be connected to the breath, we can always put our hand on our abdomen. As we breathe in, you can feel our abdomen rising. As you breathe out, you can feel the abdomen falling. So that is a very concrete practice in order for us to be in touch with the breath. We have an opportunity to make tea, to make coffee. And so do we drink our coffee or do we drink our cup of tea? Do we see it as a cup of tea? Or are we drinking our project? Are we drinking our worries? So if we allow ourselves to really be present with that cup of tea in the early morning when it's still fresh, there's stillness. Don't turn on the radio yet. Don't turn on Spotify yet. Don't look at news yet. Be there for yourself first. Enjoy that cup of tea, because that cup of tea is for the cup of tea. And because we don't recognize these wonderful qualities, these wonderful conditions that are there, we lose ourselves. We give up all these appointments of life, these simple moments of joy, these simple moments of presence. The second element is the artist. We all have creativity in us. We all want to live a life that is nourishing. We want to offer love, joy to ourselves and love, joy to our friends, our partner, the ones that are around us. And we can see that joy and happiness is not a notion in the future. We may be caught in the notion and a view of it. We may think that only after I get my diploma, I feel happy. But after you get your diploma, what's next? You may ask, right? And you may start from ground zero again, and you may feel really lost. And so we see that the process, the path to healing, the path to awakening is also a moment of joy and happiness. Even right now, we are in a crisis, right? We've heard about the information we need to hit net zero by et cetera, these dates. And if we get lost in that and we lose all the wonders of life here and now, then that's also not fair to Mother Earth. All of us who lives in Canada, I think autumn is one of the most beautiful seasons because Mother Earth is an artist. The trees, the colors of the leaves that are changing, right? If you don't recognize that as art, then I would like to invite you to connect to the forest again, look at an image, look at the trees to see that beauty, that wonder. And we have to be able to also be in touch with the creativity that is present in the earth, that is also present in us. We don't have to be called a musician, to be a painter, to be called an artist. The way we create our life, we are an artist. So we need to find that balance, having that creativity, having joy, having fun is also very important. And fun, there's many layers to fun, right? You know us as monastics, you may think that we live a very boring life. You may think that we look at the wall all day and we contemplate what is birth and death. But actually, to be in touch with life, you gotta kind of put yourself in life also, to feel it. So sometimes even us monastics, we feel quite caught. We feel quite stuck in our own daily routine. And sometimes you gotta change it up. You gotta mix it up. And sometimes we go, sisters, brothers, no meditation today. Let's go for a picnic. Let's find a nice space. We all bring some food together, and we just enjoy. We just be there with each other. We have brothers who sing, bring their guitar. Those who love playing soccer, football, bring the ball together. And just to see that being alive is a gift. We have to also nourish the element of joy in ourselves, right? Because well-being is so important to also take care of the suffering. It's like the doctors, whenever they want to operate on a patient, they got to make sure that the patient is strong enough, is well enough in order to operate. So if we're only caught up in suffering and trying to do, and we lose this element of nourishment, this element of freshness, this element of joy and happiness, then we will be very unbalanced and burnout will arrive. We will want to give up. We will fall into spaces of despair, not having hope. And so the third element is the warrior. We all have this inner strength that we would like to see change. We would like to be the change. There is a determination that we all recognize that is there in us. And what we as practitioner and as student of our teacher, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, we know that one person cannot change everything, but we need a collective awakening. And our teacher has dared to say that one Buddha is not enough in today's world. We need multiple awakening. We need multiple warriors. We need multiple friends to inspire each other. And I see this as a very important aspect of community. We may have a very deep aspiration, but we also may lose ourselves on the path. And so from time to time, we need communities, we need allies, we need friends who can remind us of why we are doing what we are doing. And also to show the beauty in the present moment. Even though we haven't yet reached the destination, we are still alive, because being alive, everything is still possible. So in the nourishing of the warrior, we also have to nourish our stability. There's this image that our teacher gave us, is that when there's a big storm and the boat is about to flip, and what is most important in that moment is everyone to be still and not to panic, not to try to do things to fix the situation right away, but to learn to be still, to see what is happening, who needs to do what, so that the boat is safe. And most of the time, we get into flight, fight, and freeze. And so the practice of mindfulness is to recognize, am I freezing, am I fighting, or am I running? So this is a very, very important element that the warrior needs, is the stability. So I would like to share also myself and Sister True Dedication. We were in Scotland at the TED Countdown Summit, and in Plum Village, our teacher says we only have one way of walking, and that is walking meditation. Walking meditation is to arrive and to enjoy each step and try to resist the running, the energy of pushing forward, of trying to reach something, but just to be present. And walking meditation doesn't mean slow also. I would like to share that mindfulness also doesn't mean you have to be slow all the time. But if we are beginners, to start on a pace that is slower, it's easy for us to just recognize the breath, recognize the steps, etc. And we found ourselves that in the midst of 800 people in the conference, we didn't lose ourselves. We were able to take refuge in the steps. And many people there had no idea who we were, had no idea what Buddhist monks were doing at a conference like this, monks and nuns. But by day 4, many came up to us and bowed and just said, dear friends, I don't know exactly what you do, but every time I see you walking, it helped me slow down. So this sharing gave us also the insight that being able to be grounded is very important, so that we can not lose ourselves even in the projects, the ambitions, the aspiration, the goals. But we have to also know how to enjoy the process, enjoy the present moment. So we have these 3 qualities: the meditator, the artist, the warrior, alive in each of us. And we can invoke these qualities in different spaces. There were moments when I felt we had to give workshops and I felt very anxious. It wasn't the monastery environment. It was a different environment. And I would invoke the warrior inside, the stability. I know that there is something I can offer. It's not me. It's just the breath. It's just the presence, right? And then my sister gave the TED Talk. So she was under a lot of stress. So I had to offer her the freshness, the creativity. And I was, sister, let's have a cup of tea. Sister, would you like some coffee? And I was her assistant. I was there to care for her well-being. And then there were moments when there was real suffering that we were present for. There was despair. And at that moment, we were all invited to come back to our breathing. And you can channel the meditator, the space, so that we can all connect to the breath. We can all connect to the humanness that is present. Like I would say in today's situation, we have a lot of technology, we have a lot of creativity, but we are also losing the human touch, the human connection that I feel is also very vital, very important to take care of our well-being. So wisdom and action can go together, and wisdom and action can also make sure that we don't lose our path, we don't lose our deepest aspiration. So with these 3 characteristics, we can find the balance, the steadiness, the strength, and the freshness that is in us, and also that we would love to offer to our colleagues, our teachers, our students, our faculty, our family, our community, and our society. Thank you. Before Q&A, we've been sitting for an hour, so we would like to do some mindful movement. And Sister True Dedication, she's gonna guide us, and I'm gonna be the model. So if you guys can follow me.
So for those of you who are, wherever you are, you might like to stand up a bit. It's good to just move the whole body. And if you don't feel comfortable standing up, you can sit, and we just start to move our shoulders a little bit. Yeah, we can stretch up our arms. We could bend slightly from one side to another. For those of you who are standing, you can see Brother Papu there.
We're gonna move the camera a little bit back.
We'll lift the camera. I'll move it back a bit. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So stretching up and then breathing in, give ourselves a nice side stretch down the side. The other way. Wonderful. Oh, it's great to have a body. We can smile to our body a little bit. Wonderful. And some more shoulder rolls. Really roll open our shoulders. computers are really scary for our shoulders. I think they don't do the right thing for our shoulders. Okay, and now we'll do some big arm stretches over. Maybe as we breathe in, we really fill up our lungs and open wide. And breathing out as we open in, out, in and out. Oh, brother, you want to do the warrior pose? So maybe you bend the knee, the final one of the mindful movements. Okay, so bend your front knee forward a little bit. This is your warrior pose, those of you who do yoga. Okay, great. You can see Brother Prabhu. So stretching one leg and then breathing in, we stretch up. This really helps the circulation move through the whole body. Beautiful. And just change to the other side. Nice stretch. Waking up the body a bit. In. And again. Wonderful. And then shake it all out in whatever way makes sense to you. Make sure that we're not accumulating any tension here in this session. That's not the idea. Wonderful. So we'll pass it back to Ellie. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for your sharing and also for inviting us to come home both through a meditative practice, but also through a little movement. That's very nice to have in my body. And thank you for all of the invitations during your talk just to kind of explore and examine our lives individually and collectively. That's something in the undergraduate courses that I'm part of the semester in our Buddhism, Psychology, and Mental Health program that we've been playing a lot with and just having a lot of really interesting discussions. And some of my students are here, so you know you've been part of these on what is that relationship? What does it mean to take care of the individual, but also the system? But the individual needs to be supported by the system. And so there's so much complexity there. I want to gently shift us towards a little bit of Q&A. Before I do, I want to be mindful to share that we've had some requests again about this being recorded. So we will share that recording. And I'm also going to drop in now into the chat a resources document that we have put together collaboratively with our brother and sister here, and also with the different programs that are co-sponsoring this event. So for those of you that would like further apps, readings, different communities you can connect with, different speaker series that we have going on at the university, that PDF has hopefully just dropped into the chat for you. So I wanted to share that. And also that our Q&A to speakers and panelists is open. So if you have a question and would like to type it in, you can type it in there. I'll be monitoring, and brother and sister, I'll kind of compile things for you so you don't have to follow along too closely. While folks are thinking about if they have any questions, and a few people, I think some people can see the PDF, some can't. So once I'm done with this orientation to the Q&A, I'll jump in and try and relink it to you. I'll also put into the chat the link to our mailing list. So for anyone who do not have technology anxiety, if you do not see the PDF come through in your chat, here is a link to our program's mailing list. You can always unsubscribe later, but if you do subscribe now, that will give us the opportunity to share with you both our resources and the link to the recording when it's up. So a few options there. While folks are thinking about questions they have, I wanted to start by putting two people on the spot that we gave a heads up to. So not two on the spot, but we have Frances Garrett joining us, who's the director of the Buddhism, Psychology, and Mental Health program, a wonderful supporter and colleague, I think, who kind of embodies, sorry to put you on the spot and say this, Frances, but as someone who works with her, just to have the opportunity to be supported and collaborative in how we work together. And then also we have Blake Poland from the Dalai Lama School of Public Health, a also dear colleague and was one of the supervisors on my PhD. And we've asked both of you, I don't know which of you wants to jump in first, but if there's any questions that you have just from your hearts, from the different lenses that you bring, we'd love to start by just inviting you to ask a question and kick us off. So maybe we can hear from both of you and then pass it back. And then just a note also, thank you, Blake. I see your note there, so I'll write to Steve. But Frances or Blake, is one of you inspired to jump in either with a question or reflection from what you just heard? And then I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this, and I'm really looking forward to taking a closer look at the book. I feel like it's just so timely, and I so enjoyed absorbing the energy of Plum Village in the transmission, as well as the content of what was shared. So thank you so much. I do a lot of work on sustainability transition, and so this is very close to my heart. And I see the relevance for so many of us who are in activist mode, who are in danger of burning out, or maybe not attending as much as we could to the quality of being from which we source our doing. So this really spoke to me. And I have a question about, in this kind of time of disruption and fear and oppression, if you could maybe speak a bit to the possibility of what some people are calling a trauma-informed approach to mindfulness, because people are carrying so much accumulated pain and intergenerational and interspecies suffering, that I wonder what that element or way of thinking about it might add in this conversation.
Respond directly while Francis prepares your question. I think for us, we also see that actually this unfolding event will be a very stressful human event. It may be in itself traumatic, including all the intra-human traumas that we're creating. And for us, we are also students of this path. You know, we're students of Buddhist psychology, and we are also students of Western psychology, and doing our best to understand a more trauma-informed approach. And I think that we had the wonderful Peter Levine paid us a visit in 2019, and he's a wonderful teacher, a wonderful healer of trauma. And one observation that he made to us about our approach to mindfulness, because we don't do, for those of you who are listening and have never been to Plum Village, you don't sit for 10 hours silently on a cushion in Plum Village. And that's not something that we recommend to people. What we practice really is a presence throughout the day that is also a very in the safety of human connection also. And Peter Levine observed that the way we have it here, with maybe it's just 30 minutes of sitting in the morning and the evening. We have music, we have movement, dance, we have sports, we have a lot of sharings in small intimate groups, sometimes just 4 or 5 people, sometimes slightly larger. So it's quite intimate and familiar when we have what we would call our immersive retreat experience. And we also have mindful eating. So really and deeper relaxation that can be adapted for those of us who find it hard to be in our body. And that's something that we really also acknowledge, that it's not always easy. The body can be a safe place for some of us, and for others it may not be. But we hope to have and to continue our teachers' tradition of a sort of soft and gentle approach, which is also very powerful and very, very healing. And I mean, it's our wish, and with our network of local sanghas who share these kind of practices, maybe once a week or once a fortnight in local towns and cities, we can create what we would call environments of healing, where when we feel wounded, when we're in need of building ourselves up again, it's by coming into community, by having just a few hours a week in creating a collective energy of mindfulness with others. Balancing these different modalities of mindfulness can be create the conditions to sustain our own personal mindfulness practice at home, and that this healing of trauma can happen over time, and that we develop a resilience also when we've had a difficult moment, when we are experiencing something difficult, to know how to access the kind of support or choices that would be healing for us in those moments. But it's definitely something we're very interested in. And we've had a number of retreats with scientists here in Plum Village, including those who are experts in trauma. And that's been a great laboratory to explore how we can develop these practices more fully. But thank you. It's a very important point. Thank you. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you. And Francis is just suggesting, so I'm just going to jump to a few of the questions that have already come in because they flow well off of what we were just exploring. So I just wanted to offer up, and again, for everyone who's here with us, that the Q&A chat to panelists is open, so feel free to drop questions in. We had a question first, thanking you for your presence today from someone who's actually had a chance to read this book and kind of take away some key insights. Their question for you is, where do we start to get all of this to mainstream society? I feel these teachings are so beautiful and helpful for the times we live in, but how can we make them reach mainstream as fast as we can? Of course, doing it mindfully, because the climate clock is clicking fast.
How do we make it mainstream? That's the question we gotta ask them. Hi. How do we make it mainstream? I think that's a collective contribution from everyone. I think us in the monasteries, we have also been reflecting to see how we can make our teachings also more accessible. So we have been doing a lot of online platforms so that people can feel they can feel comfortable by being introduced to the practice, and they can still be at home in a safe space. So in the pandemic, we couldn't receive retreatants, so we started a whole online retreats, and that has been very welcomed, and we were very surprised at how wonderful people can continue. I think that for us, though, as part of our mission is not to make it so to not push it to become mainstream, but I think when the time is right, it will just become mainstream. But at the same time, I think mindfulness is also quite mainstream right now. And I think people like Ellie and people like many who are a part of this conference, right? Not conference, webinar are also practitioners. So we see the ripple effect, right? We see that if you're also someone who's in the world who knows how to be present, knows how to take care of himself, like your friends will be like, how are you so stable? And that's an opportunity. It's like, oh, there's this mindfulness practice that I've been doing. And so I think this way of connection and transmission has also been a way for the Dharma to continue to flow from generations to generation. Us in Plum Village, we've also done apps to help people connect to the practice also. So for our friends, if you are new and you would like to have a guided meditation once a day, so we have, called a Plum Village app. It's totally free. There are many guided meditation by our sister, by our brothers, by our teacher. You can hear his voice. And also we have created a podcast called The Way Out is In, that we hope that it can also be an access to friends who are interested but don't like the form of like a Dharma talk or like something so Buddhist. So we've created this kind of new door into our teachings and our way of life. So I guess we're trying, but we're not so ambitious, and so we're not going to be stressed about that. So I think the Dharma is to come and see and to experience for yourself. That's what is very important for us. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to collate a few more questions that have been coming in. But before we do that, I want to invite Steve Easterbrook has joined us, and Jeff Newman, if you're able to give him a co-host so he can turn on his video. There we go. So Steve, you should be able to turn it on. I'll let you maybe introduce yourself a little more, but Steve is the Director of School of the Environment here at the University of Toronto. And we also want to invite you just to share any comments or questions that you have from hearing this talk today.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm enjoying it very much. I discovered mindful meditation myself a few years back at a time when I was dealing with a lot of climate anxiety, and it really helped me kind of achieve more of a sense of balance and kind of come to terms with certainly with those feelings of anxiety about the future, and I especially appreciated today. Building in the physical exercises. I needed to stand up and stretch, so I thank you for that. Too many Zoom meetings sat in my chair, so I'm going to include that with my students when I teach them online. But my question really is thinking. I've been thinking about this whole concept of living in the present, and how we apply it, especially those of us kind of deeply embedded in a Western culture, how we apply it to the rest of our lives. Like this question of borrowing from the future, kind of financially, environmentally, and so on, keeps coming up, and we live these lives where we borrow money all the time in the expectation that we can get something now, and we're borrowing from the future. So I wondered if you could speak about that a little bit more.
Thank you, Steve. That's an excellent question. This has also come up for us in our recent interactions at COP26 and the TED Environmental Conference, where people said, but monastics, please, whatever you do, don't talk about the present moment, because the whole problem is that we're too much in the present and we're not planning enough for the future. So we also got this other feedback. So like, whatever you do, don't tell people to be in the present. So we had to say, well, actually, it's about being in the present in the right way. So it's easy to be lost in the present. I think those of us who've had the experience of watching a streaming service and just not being able to not watch the next episode of something, that's kind of being lost in the present. Technically, we're in the present moment of the screen, but we're not with our body, we're not with our environment, we're not maybe with other people in our household or whatever. So I think there's a kind of a switch or an awakening that we all need to have about the right way of being in the present. And so when we are fully, and this is why the body becomes such an important ground for this. And I think for those of us from a Western background, as you say, actually we become quite alienated from our bodies. Depending on our culture, that might be more or less, but to really listen to our body in any given moment, in any meeting or class or difficult conversation, just to take one breath, to check in, to release some tension in our chest, to feel our feet on the ground. And it's possible to build up the kind of muscle memory of throughout the day at a few different points being able to come back to our breathing and our body. And it's that stability that then gives us the openness to be with what's going on. And I sometimes describe it as, it's a bit like opening the curtains on the present moment. I think most of us, we give only like 5 or 10% of our awareness to what's actually going on. And there's maybe like 40% is what's happened with the rest of the morning. And then the next 40% is what's going to happen with the rest of the day or in the future. And actually any given moment isn't quite having enough. So it's having that courage to really open up to the present moment. And I think when we build up what is almost, I'd almost call it an energy of concentration. It's excellent I don't know if you have children or any of us watching have nieces, nephews, or children, and to offer that quality of presence to our loved ones, especially to young ones, we can really feel that difference. We get that feeling of being fully present for a wonder of life, which is a young child in front of us. Or for those of us that love trees, we can offer our full presence to a tree. Someone mentioned in the chat a wonderful book by another student of our teacher called Glenn Schneider, who wrote a book called 10 Breaths. And he invites us to give full 10 in and out breaths to the wonderful moments of our life, whether it's the presence of a loved one or a sunset or a tree, and to challenge yourself. So next time you're aware, like, oh, something fantastic is happening, but I'm in a hurry, to say to yourself, okay, can I give this full 10 full in and out breaths? And to allow that to happen and to train ourselves to give life this kind of attention, it does inform our wider mentality, like you mentioned, about the sense of borrowing, or even like we borrow from ourselves as well, as Brother Fakul was saying. We say, I need to get that, and once I've got that, then, I'll work through the night, or I'll work late, or I'll do this, or not this weekend, next weekend. We're borrowing from our own present moment. And so the solution is to be more in the present, to feel the call of the present, and to train ourselves to be there. And I think that is the key that will unlock the mental paradigm that you were mentioning. Thank you.
Thank you for these questions from your hearts. And I'm also aware of our time. So a little gentle time check for us all as we come up to this half hour here. If we have maybe brother and sister, I might just offer a little bit of a summary of many of the themes that I'm seeing in the questions that have come in, and perhaps you can offer us some final insights, and then we will wrap up the session. For those of you, again, we'll have the recording to share. We have a resources document that we'll be sending out. So we hope that this session is not a one-off. We keep saying we're all interconnected. So hopefully this is really the beginning of dialogue, or perhaps the continuation of dialogue. I think for myself, getting to connect and this idea of community, one Buddha or one wonderful human is not enough. This idea that all of us are invited to be artists, to consider who are we in our lives, and if each one of us is an individual but also part of the system, how does everything change if just us changes? But also, how can we support each other in community, and how can we do that? And like I said, asking these questions in our courses, I think as a researcher, I sometimes like to think about the fact that as a researcher, I know that I don't have the answer to the question tomorrow. In fact, sometimes just coming up with a good research question is enough. And then I have to come up with the study design and then do the study. And there's so many iterations. And I think that can be overwhelming. But also, as we are hosting this at the University of Toronto, maybe my proposal is, as we sit here today, even if we don't answer all the questions in the Q&A, we've started to come up with some good questions. And that's a beautiful thing to do together. And also to know that we aren't alone in these questions, and that we aren't alone in the study design that we may create to answer them as a human family. There's, all of us here today, almost 300, and then those, who registered and those out in the world. So that was what was coming up for me. What I want to kind of hand back to both of you to give us some maybe closing remarks today. And again, that no beginning, no end, to close this manifestation of dialogue, but not to stop what we've started. There seems to be a bit of a theme in many of the questions about knowledge translation. Really, how do we communicate? Like if we, in this session are open to these ideas, or we see value or meaning in what you've shared today, but how do we communicate that perhaps beyond ourselves to our immediate communities? Questions about those who are perpetrating systems of oppression, questions about activists who are burning out and losing hope, questions about how to respond to those who believe it doesn't matter what we do anymore. So why does it matter? So I think this kind of collective questioning from those of us in the session, even if we see value here, how do we possibly begin to communicate it beyond ourselves?
So thank you, Ellie, and thank you, everyone. I wish we could have more time, but okay. I think one thing I want to offer all of us is that in talking about conversations, interactions, and ripples, never underestimate the power of being fully present for the person in front of you. Whether you're at a store, whether you're meeting a stranger on the street, whether you're dealing with a friend or a family member, and in particular, if you are encountering someone who has a different view, a different world view, we have a practice that we call the art of deep listening. And that is to be present in our body, to follow our breathing, to be fully there ourselves for the whole person in front of us, to have eye contact with them, to kind of open up our heart, to hear what they're saying, what they're leaving unsaid, to really have an open heart of inquiry, a curiosity to understand them. And that takes actually all the qualities of stability, of ease, of relaxation that we've been talking about today. And I think if we had to name one secret superpower of mindfulness practice, I would say it is the power to listen, to really listen deeply to another human being. And we've experienced that in these conferences and in our own relationships. And we know that that can be the single biggest gift that we can give someone, to be really there for them and their concerns. When we speak, as I'm seeing in the chat also, there's questions of despair and of anger and so on. That wit and generating an energy of presence and love is already an ingredient that is transforming the situation. Even you haven't done anything yet, even you haven't said anything. It is changing the relation. There's no more panic and reactivity. There's holding, there's witnessing. And a very important point that you mentioned, which is when we encounter those who feel it's too late, how do we respond to that? And I just want to say a few words on that, which is in our deep Buddhist understanding of the nature of reality, the future is made only of the present moment. Don't think that we don't continue in the future. Everything we do now is resonating across space and time, and we will be participating in the future even in 100,000 years' time, right? It's being made in this moment. So there's no such thing as too late or not enough. Each one of us has a kind of agency to act now, and that ripple is in its own way infinite, according to our understanding of how the cosmos works. And I believe a lot of physicists agree with us. So it's a powerful understanding of how time operates. That the future is made only of this moment, and it's up to each one of us to do what we can and to send out that good energy we would like to into the world.
Yes, and I would like to just end with a story that comes from the experience of our teacher. Our teacher was a peace activist, and during the time that he was in Vietnam, when the bombs were falling and the bullets were flying, and there was a lot of violence and suffering and discrimination, as well as hatred. And so he, as a monk, he asked himself, what can I do? What can I do as one individual? What can I offer? It seemed like the situation of the country is beyond one person's capacity to take care of something. So he touched his warrior seed, and he started a movement, and he would collect all of the young monastic, young people who are not involved in the war, but who wants to do something to bring love and healing and compassion. So they started a grassroots community, and they would go to villages that were destroyed by the bombs, were destroyed by the war, and they would help rebuild. They would help educate. They would help take care of the orphanage, of the orphans. They would help bring fresh water, bring fresh food, bring the simple medicine, just simple acts of kindness. And that gave hope to people. That gave hope to the despair in that moment. Because the energy is created by people. So if you can help people connect to the hope and the compassion, that was very important. And there was a particular moment when they went to one particular village, and every time they helped rebuild it, it was bombed again. And then they would come again, and it was bombed and bombed. And one day our teacher, in the morning gathering, he said to the students, okay, we gotta go back. And one of his lay student asked our teacher, We call him Thai. Thai means teacher in Vietnamese. He said, Thai, is it even worth it? And Thai said that was a very difficult moment for him because intellectually they knew that if they are to rebuild, they know it's going to be bombed again. But Thai said, yes, we will. Because what we are offering to the suffering in that moment, to those people, it is the faith in humanity. It is the love and the compassion and the hope. So Thai and his community continue to do that. So even in moments of despair and moments of darkness, sometimes we just need one person to light up a candle to show that there is still light. And then you will come along, you will also carry that torch, and then the next person. So do not underestimate the effect of one person, because the ripple effect sometimes is not seen. You cannot see it, but it is penetrating everywhere. So I think this for me was a very beautiful teaching of our teacher. And I, like Ellie explained, I had the chance to be a very close attendant to Thai. So I get to be with him almost every day. And one of the most beautiful teachings is not the words, but it's the action. So sometimes some of us are good, some of us are teachers, we are very good speakers, we know how to educate. And some of us, we can carry the teaching by being, by how we hold ourselves, how we take care of the present moment, how we take care of each situation. And being in the present moment doesn't mean you can't think, but you know how to think and that you don't get lost in your thinking. And another funny story, just to end, we were all at the airport in Italy, and we were going to transfer airplane, and it was our teacher and 30 monks and nuns. Wherever our teacher went for a teaching tour, he would bring a body of monastic with him. And in that very moment, we heard the announcement that we're going to be late for our flight. And our teacher looked at all of us and he said, all right, let's run. So 30 monks and nuns in the airport with brown robes and shaved head were sprinting across the airport with our teacher at the front. That must have been like a movie scene. But that's to show you that is also in the present moment, we know how to take care of it. Mindfulness is also not to be caught in, oh, we have to be slow, we have to be present. Presence is very powerful. Presence can be in every action as long as we do not lose ourselves. But most of the times we do lose ourselves. So there are these basic practices to just come back to the body or come back to whatever it is to help us be focused, help us gather ourselves again so we can continue. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, thank you for everyone who's dropping into the chat. And we have a limitation of time and space today, so maybe a craving to keep going, but also a really warm invitation from all of us at the university. A thank you to our co-sponsors in the Buddhism Psychology Mental Health Program, from the School of the Environment, from the Center for Buddhist Studies, and Blake for joining us from the School of Public Health, that we want to keep these dialogues going here, and to our friends in Plum Village. To be part of this exchange with you is so special. And so for everyone joining, again, I'll put into the chat the mailing list you can join to get a link of this recording, the resources sheets. You can check out plumvillage.org to see about upcoming retreats, talks, tons of amazing resources there. So this, we hope today in this session, is just the start and continuation of dialogue. And just, again, a big thank you to everyone. I'm also going to drop into the chat a concept paper that the Earth Holders Sangha, which is a community that has its roots in Plum Village, has come up with for creating mindful action pods. And so it's a concept paper on how we might connect to take mindful action, and just that hopeful invitation and note that wisdom and action can go together, that we are on a path together. We are not alone. We are all researchers of what it means to be human and perhaps also what it means to care for ourselves and the planet. So thank you everyone for coming together today to build community, to share in dialogue. And again, there's a book, so check it out. And thank you to our faculty and students for joining us, and wishing everyone well in whatever way wellness may show up for you, in big and small ways, whether it's to say hello to a few breaths and the tree outside, or to take big action, small action, whatever that is. We wish you well in that. And thank you, brother and sister, for joining us. So fun to be here with you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And can I just say I'm so happy because I'm from Toronto, so it's so wonderful to just be able to connect to Canada, to connect to my hometown, to connect to everyone who has given my family this opportunity in the life in Canada, as well as, yeah, thank you. I love you, everyone. Hope to reconnect to Canada soon.
Yes, and if our brother doesn't say, if you want to connect to him even sooner, he has an awesome podcast, and it's in the resources sheet. Sorry, sister, you're going to jump in.
I was just going to say thank you, everyone, so much. And for the Toronto folks, you can follow Brother Papu on Instagram as well. Sometimes we have to, the monastics, we have to find the new ways to connect to you all. So we also we also do that.
We've got their Instagram handles on the resources sheet. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming.